Hi guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are well and I hope you guys are staying safe. In today's video, we're going to be recreating a dress that I found on Pinterest, and I would like you guys to tell me what the verdict is. Did I pass or did I fail? I'm curious to see what you guys say in the comments. So basically the one on the left is what I found on Pinterest, while the one on the right is the creation that I have made. So again, like I said, let me know what you guys think. So to get started, you need your basic bodice. Go ahead and grab the front piece, and then from the waist you want to go ahead and mark 4 centimeters upwards. After marking 4 centimeters upwards, draw a line or square it out, and then go ahead and label the band piece appropriately. The reason why I'm using 4 centimeters is because this is going to be the band piece. Cut it out when you're happy with it, and then go ahead and close the darts only on the band piece. To close your dart properly, you want to close it towards the center front, and then use a masking tape to hold it in place. Cut off any excess masking tape that you have, and then let's go ahead and work on the remaining part of the bodice. Now to work on the remaining part of the bodice, we want to do the neckline. For the neckline, starting from where the neck starts from, I marked 1.5 centimeters in to the left, and then from that 1.5 centimeters in, I drew a slant line all the way to the edge or the corner of the bodice. Right now, next thing to do is to mark the little strip that goes across the chest. So for that, I kind of maintained the bust line that I had. So if you see, I just went across and it's only about 1 inch wide. However, in retrospect, I feel like it should have gone lower, so I would have placed that little piece a bit lower, the one that you can see that is marked center front. Anyway, once you're happy with it, go ahead and cut out your pieces, and you should have a couple of pieces. So you have a band piece for the front, you have the side front, you have the center front main piece, and then you have the little center front piece, right? So eventually you have about 4 pieces that you'll be needing to make your dress. If you don't know how to draft a basic bodice, please check out the link in the icons above or in the description box below. It's a detailed tutorial showing you how to draft a basic bodice. So let's ensure we have the right pieces. We have the center front, the main one here. We have the side front. We have the little center front piece, which is where I was saying that for me, I found that it's a bit too high. I should have brought it lower. And then we have the band. Now that that's all good, we're going to pin all of those pieces together because we don't want to get any of them missing. And we're going to work on the back bodice. So go ahead and grab your back bodice, and in similar fashion, from the bottom we're going to mark 4 centimeters upwards, which will be our band line as well. So go ahead and square it out or draw a straight line to connect it, and then mark your center back, side back, and then label it appropriately. Now after doing that, the next thing to do is for us to close the dart on the band piece, and then we're going to go ahead and cut off any excess masking tape just like we did for the front piece. And then the next thing to do is to connect our darts on the back piece. So go ahead and draw your darts out. I'm just making mine bolder with some marker, and then I'm going to redraw my neckline. So similar fashion, I went in by 1.5 centimeters for the neck width, and then the neck depth I dropped by an extra 2 centimeters. So draw the neckline and then go ahead and cut it off as shown. If you haven't subscribed, please do well to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on the awesome content that I have for you. Now that all our pieces have been cut, it's time to start cutting out our fabric, and you'll need the following items. Go ahead and get your fabric, and then if you're like me and you want to use the fabric as the lining as well, fold it over so that when you're cutting out the pieces, you're actually cutting out the main fabric and the lining piece as once. The only one that needs to be on center front is the small piece, which will have to be on fold. The rest of them, you literally be cutting out 4 pieces, right? 2 for the main fabric and 2 for the lining. So go ahead and pin your pieces onto the fabric, mark out your sewing allowance as you should, and then go ahead and cut it out just like I'm doing now. So for the center front part, the small strip, I went ahead to cut that on fold, and I had 2 pieces when I was finished. I went ahead to cut out the other pieces as well, and for those ones I had 4 pieces when I was done. Make sure to add your side seam allowance as well as your zipper allowance, as you will need that. So for the zipper allowance, I recommend using something like 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. And if you don't know how I converted inches to centimeters so quick, go ahead and check out the detailed video I have on that conversion. I'll link it in the icons above as well. Once you're done cutting out the main pieces, you want to cut out the band piece as well. So for the band, in similar fashion, we'll be using the band piece as the lining or the main fabric as the lining as well. So you want to go ahead and cut out your band, and this time your band for the front will actually be on fold. So make sure it's on the center fold like I'm doing now. Cut it off with the necessary allowance, and then go ahead and cut out the back piece. For the back piece, you need your zipper allowance and your side seam allowance as well. Now for the band, I needed it to be sturdy, so I went ahead to cut out some interfacing just to give it a little bit of firmness, right? So I cut out one piece of interfacing for the center front and another piece of interfacing for the center back. Go ahead and iron out the interfacing, and then you should have the center front piece, the actual center front piece, the side front piece, and the band. We're going to go ahead and start sewing the front pieces. So go ahead and get that small strip, and this is what it looks like. You remember I put some interfacing on it as well, and now you want to place it so the right sides are facing each other, and you want to go ahead and sew it at the top and at the bottom. After sewing it, you want to turn it over to the right side, and one thing I like to do is I make sure to top stitch. So if you didn't top stitch, you can top stitch if it's convenient for you, otherwise you can leave it and give it a good iron. So turn it inside out, give it a good iron, and this is what the piece looks like now that is ironed. Now that that's done, we're going to move over to the big side front piece and then the center front piece, and then we're going to go ahead and unpin those. Now like I said, I cut out the lining and the main fabric, so separate it so that you have two pieces for the main fabric and two pieces for the lining, and then you want to go ahead and start working on the main fabric. Now one thing is, before you unpin it, you want to go ahead and mark or notch where that little band connects to the main fabric, right? So I've gone ahead to mark that based on the lines that I made on my pattern, and then I'm going ahead to give it a very tiny notch so that I know where to place it when I'm sewing. So we're going to start, this is the wrong side. You want to go ahead and place it so that right sides are facing each other. We're starting with one piece, and then pin it all the way from the bottom to the top. We're going to sew it on 1/2 inch sewing allowance, and repeat the same thing for the other side as well. At this point, I've gone ahead to sew the main fabric and the lining. This is the lining with the top stitching, so you can tell the difference, and the main fabric is the one where I have ironed the seam and pressed the seam flat. So now we're going to go ahead and place the main fabric as it should be, side by side, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab that small piece in the middle, and I'm going to place it on the main fabric so the right sides are facing each other. I place it at the point where I notched. Now I cover that with the lining, and then I go ahead to pin it all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. So I know this part might be a bit confusing for some people, but I promise you, if you watch this part a couple of times, 2-3 times in slow motion, you will get it. Go ahead and sew it from top to bottom, and then after sewing it, give it a good iron and top stitch if you want. So this is what that side looks like. We're going to repeat the same thing for the other side. Go ahead and place that tiny piece so that the right side is facing the right side of the fabric, and pin it in place. Then you want to go ahead and cover the main fabric with the lining piece so that the right sides are facing each other. And then you want to go ahead and pin the pieces together, starting from the waist all the way to the shoulder or the neckline, right? After pinning, you want to go ahead and sew it together on 1/2 inch sewing allowance. And if it helps, go ahead and mark out your sewing allowance before sewing. Sew it in place, and after sewing, give it a good iron and top stitch if you want, and this is the result you should be getting. So as you can see, it's coming together nicely. I actually am not mad. Once you're happy with the front piece, you want to go ahead and start working on the back piece. So we're going to put this away. You want to grab your back bodice as well. So your back pieces, you should have two. You should have the center back piece and the side back piece. And I remember that I told you that for me, I use the lining as the fabric as well, right? The fabric as the lining. So you want to go ahead and separate it so you have two pieces for the main fabric, two pieces for the lining, right? So when I say two pieces, two of the center back and two of the side back. Pin the center back together so that it holds it in place, and then you want to open it up to the right side. Then go ahead and place the side back on each way the way it should be, and then we're going to go ahead and pin it in place. To pin it in place, you want to place the side back on the center back so that the right sides are facing each other, and pin it all the way from the waist to the shoulder line, and you want to mark your sewing allowance of 1/2 inch. Repeat this on the other side as well and sew it in place. After that, you should do that for the lining as well. So at this point, I have my lining back piece and my main fabric back piece together. I place them on each other. So place the lining on the main fabric so that the right sides are facing each other. And we're going to go ahead and pin the neckline in place. Go ahead and sew the neckline on 1/2 inch sewing allowance. And one thing you should always do after sewing the neckline is you want to go ahead and notch it and top stitch it and give it a good press with your iron. Alright guys, so at this point our neckline is done. The next thing to do is to sort out the shoulder. Place the front piece, that's the part with the strip, on top of the back piece, and then you want to go ahead and make sure the right sides are facing each other. You want to grab the shoulder part and you want to go ahead and pin it in place, making sure there's a match between all the seams along the shoulder line. So essentially you're making sure that the lining matches the lining of the front and the back, and then the main fabric matches it, and then you want to sew that in place on 1/2 inch sewing allowance. Give it a good press after, and at this point you have joined your pieces together along the shoulder. So this is what the result should look like, and at this point I'm really happy the dress is starting to come along. We are practically halfway in. So the next thing for us to do is to measure how long we want the flounce to be, and the flounce is going to be along the shoulder. So go ahead and measure from the top right all the way to the back across the shoulder. Now the next thing to do is you want to go ahead and make the flounce, and this is a method that I use for making flounces. I go ahead and fold my fabric into 4 as if I'm cutting a circle or full circle, and then after doing that I start from the edge. I mark out 1.5 inch initially, which will just be like, you know, the base, which is half of whatever you want to use really. So in this case 1.5, and then I wanted my flounce width to be 3 inches including all allowances, so I went ahead to mark that out. And you want to repeat this all around for the flounce. So like I said, you start with the fabric folded in 4, you do that on one side, you do it on the other side, then you fold you not unfold, but you go over to the other side of the fabric and you repeat it. Essentially, when you're done repeating it, you should have full circles on your fabric. Like I said, this is my own hack of doing it, and this is what it looks like with the full circles, right? So if you have anything to draw full circles, you can also use that method. Now one thing you have to do is connect each of them. So basically I went ahead all around to make sure I connected them with like a slant line, and then I used my rotary cutter to cut it all, as well as my scissors, right? So this is not a detailed tutorial on the flounce. If you want a detailed tutorial on how to cut a flounce, let me know and I'll be more than happy to do a tutorial for that. At this point, I'm done cutting my flounce, and I found that I cut way too much flounce, but it's better than having less flounce, right? So go ahead and, you know, shaping your flounce. This is the flounce that I need, so I just measured out what I needed based on the measurement that I took, and I cut out every excess that I had, just like that, including, you know, giving it just a little bit of like leeway. Now I went ahead with my Janome Air Thread 2000D overlocker to overlock the edge of the flounce and the beginning of the flounce. I didn't have the exact color of thread, however I tried to make do with something as close, and with that it kind of worked. So now that I've done that, the next thing to do is to open up the fabric, and we're going to go ahead and place the flounce on the fabric. So like I said, you want to go ahead and open up the fabric, and you want to make sure that you're on the right side alone. So separate the right side from the lining piece. And then one thing I wanted to do was kind of mark out how well I wanted to place the flounce. So again, this will vary based on your measurement, but I would say as a guide, you want it to be a bit of a straight line from the armhole, right? So go ahead and start from the waist, and you want to pin your flounce in place with the inner side of the flounce, right? So you want to make sure the right side of the flounce is against the right side of the main fabric, and then you want to just go ahead and pin it in place. So again, the right side of the flounce should be on the right side of the main fabric, and then you want to go ahead and place the outer edge of the flounce towards the armhole. Now when you're doing that, you want to sew that in place on 1/2 inch sewing allowance so that it's only to the main fabric and not on the lining. You want to go ahead and repeat this on the other side as well. Now this is what it looks like after sewing the flounce on one side. You're going to go ahead and open up the main fabric from the lining. Like I said, you want to make sure it's separated, and then you want to go ahead and cover it with the lining in place so that you can close the armhole. To ensure I have the perfect armhole, I like to pin the shoulder bit or the shoulder seam in place, and then go ahead and pin the rest of the armhole and then sew that in place. After that, this is what it looks like. The next thing to do is to close the side seam, and to do that you want to go ahead and open up the pieces, and then you want to align it so the right side is facing each other. Right side of the main fabric is facing right side of the other side, front and back, and then the lining piece front and back is also facing each other. Then you want to go ahead and sew the seam allowance that you left in place. Now after sewing the seam allowance, this is it. In the front, it's only held together by that string in front, or that little small bit, and of course we haven't added the back seam. So the last thing to do, or the next thing to do rather, is to add your band to it. So for the band, we're going to go ahead and separate it from the pattern. So you want to go ahead and grab the band, and I have notched the top of the band so I can tell the top from the bottom, and I can also tell the side seam from the center back. For me, that helps me. Now you want to go ahead and pin it together along the side seam, which is what I've done. So open it up, place the front right sides on each other, and then you want to pin the sides, right? And you'll find out that the back is larger or longer, but that's also because of the presence of the zipper allowance on the back, so don't forget. Join that together on your sewing machine, and then we're going to go ahead and bring this back so that we can join it to the main fabric. Now one thing you want to do is find the side seam joining on the band and pin that in place with the side seam joining on the bodice, and then you want to go ahead and work your way. So first start with the side seam, pin it in place, and from that point you want to go ahead and pin the entire band width to the bodice width, and it should actually just be perfect, right? It should just fit perfectly. So go ahead and pin it in place as many times as you want, right? The more pins the better, so that you have absolute control over this. After pinning the main fabric onto it, we're going to go ahead and also pin the lining onto the other side. So essentially the bodice is sandwiched in between the lining and the main fabric band. So similar way, you want to pin the side seam in place first, and then you want to go ahead and work your way to the sides and to the inside towards the center front. Now that that's pinned and all ready to go, you want to go ahead and sew it in place on 1/2 inch sewing allowance. And after sewing it in place, this is what it looks like. Give it a good iron and make sure to top stitch if you need it. Now that the band is done, you want to confirm your waist measurements, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and cut out the gathers pieces. Now I'm not going to go into too much details with cutting out the bottom part of it, because I have a tutorial teaching you how to make a gather skirt. However, if you do want me to go into details, let me know and I'll be more than happy to. For this, you want to go ahead and cut the part that you'll be using for your gathers. I recommend at least 2 times the entire measurement that you took. So the waist measurement, you want to go ahead and do at least 2 times of that. However, I didn't have enough fabric at once, so I had to join along the side seam, right? So now that I've done my gathers on my fabric strip, I'm going to go ahead and align the side seam. Like I said, the only reason why I joined was because my fabric was not wide enough. However, if your fabric is wide enough, you don't need a side seam joining. So now that I'm done, the next thing you want to do is you want to mark the middle of the gathers, and you want to pin that in place with the middle of the main fabric of the bodice, and then you want to mark the side seams as well, and then you want to mark the ends as well, which is the zipper allowance, right? And then you want to evenly distribute your gathers all around to make sure that it's nicely distributed, and really you just want to go ahead and sew your gathers in place, right? So this is what it looks like when you use 2 times the measurement. So the gathers here are a bit fuller than what I had in the picture, but after sewing it, guys, this is the finished dress. In my opinion, it looks really nice. I'll give myself a pass. I don't know what verdict you guys would give me, but let me know in the comment section below, and let me know if there's any other tutorial that you would like to see. I'm now doing like more detailed tutorials, so I'll be more than happy to take on your request. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Again, before you guys call me out on my error, I'm going to call myself out. I should have made that little bit in front by the bust, I should have made it go lower. However, it's still a very pretty dress in my opinion. So lessons learned, and if you guys are making it, don't make the same mistake I did. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching to the end, and have a good week. Bye.